session. Shani Fleming has devoted her career to promoting social justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion within the healthcare community. She has significant clinical, academic, and leadership experience as a PA. She serves as Associate Professor, Executive Team Member of the Physician Assistant Leadership and Learning Academy, and the Graduate School Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Officer at the University of Maryland, Baltimore. She's an active volunteer with PAEA and founder of PAEA Minority Faculty Special Interest Group. She's also the recipient of the inaugural AAPA Diversity Award this year. It is my absolute pleasure and honor to introduce Shani Fleming.
Good afternoon. Can you all hear me? Okay, perfect. Okay, great. So I am so thankful to be here with you all. I am actually going to turn off my video if that's okay. Just know that I am here. If you just hear my voice, my internet is a bit unstable, and sometimes if I turn my video off, it helps. So again, I am so thankful to be here with each and every one of you. My topic today is really around cultivating leadership, resilience, and strength throughout PA school and beyond. One of my favorite sort of cartoon movies is Finding Nemo, and this whole notion of just keep swimming definitely resonated with me as I started in PA school and then throughout my entire career as a PA and a PA educator. So one of my favorite scenes in that movie, and I don't know whether or not you all have seen it, but it was when Marlon and Dory, they were in the whale, and Dory said, like, I think she was talking whale, and she said, you know, it's time to let go. Everything's going to be all right. And Marlon said, hey, how do you know? How do you know something bad isn't going to happen? And she says, I don't. And then they both let go, right? And then everything turned out okay. And I think that, you know, I'm certainly Marlon, right? Like I need to know what's the plan. I need to have a plan A through Z before I'm letting go. But in that instance, you know, he trusted and he let go and everything turned out just fine. And that really has been my career trajectory. Thank you so much for giving that amazing introduction. Sometimes when I hear about my sort of path, I'm kind of amazed, you know, because I grew up in a small place outside of Washington, D.C., PG County, very small community. Definitely, we didn't have a lot of money. There was a ton of gun violence. I had to be bused to go to a school well outside of my community in order for me to even just have a shot at college and things of that nature. So I definitely came from some humble backgrounds. And then my path led me to George Washington University, which is where I completed my PA training. And I walked into the classroom and I was the only Black woman in the entire room. And that was a new experience for me. I went to a historically Black college where everybody looked like me, to go into a place where I was the only one. And it was life-changing. And it was, you know, it was a life-changing experience for me. And then to know that I, you know, to get through that, and then as a PA faculty, almost every single program that I've been a part of, I was the only, you know, Black person in the program. So there were many skills and many traits and many lessons learned that really helped me to keep swimming and to keep going, and not only to survive, but to also thrive. And so I just want to share some of these with you. This is something that really resonated with me, not only because it looks like it's only one little Black person in the row, because that was always me, but also it's just like a lot of these skills you develop and you don't realize that it's happening until you wake up, and then all of a sudden you are the one leading these equity, diversity, and inclusion efforts. And that's really has been my path, you know, as a leader. So these are some of the these are some of the tools in my tool belt that have really helped sustain me and to keep me moving in sometimes some rough waters, so vision. So there is this quote, where there is no vision, the people will perish, right? And what helped me is that I always had this vision that there was something greater, and that there was a reason why I had to persist and keep moving. Because many a day when I saw that you guys were writing in the chat about that negative self-talk, and that you could get one bad thing and it negates all the rest of the positive things, that definitely happened. But you have to keep that vision of where you're going at the forefront. So I am somebody who likes to put sticky notes, because sometimes I'll forget. And so, I'll put a sticky note, like, just finish your PhD. I'm working on my PhD. So just finish your PhD. So I have that vision in front of me at all times. And so that's something that really helped me to keep going. That a lot of the negative talk will get in the way, but if you have whatever your goal is at the forefront, it should be able to help you persist. Motivation. So I would like for you all actually to use the chat, like, what is that thing that motivates you? And each of us, it's a very unique space, right? It's a very unique thing. It could be a parent, it could be a child, it could be, who you envision yourself to be. But what is your motivation to keep going? This quote by Bill Bradley: leadership is unlocking people's potential to become better. And oftentimes it's, what is that thing that's motivating you to keep going, to be better? I had an amazing family who, many of them did not go to college. So they looked at me and they were so proud. And that motivation of, wanting to make them proud, wanting to serve my community was my motivation. And so good, I'm seeing a lot of these things come up in the chat, and making sure that you write them down and revisit it. One of the advice that I tell my early students enter into PA program: keep a journal, because this is an experience unlike any other. And if you need to go back to, write down your motivation and continue to go back to that page where that motivation is there, because it is a very unique experience unlike any other. Innovative and resourcefulness. And I know I'm a big kid at heart, so I love all these movies, but Up, right? So how innovative he was when, putting all those balloons on his home to take him from one point A to point B. When you are navigating PA school, and then when you navigate the career as a PA, you want to be comfortable sort of being outside the box, right? Being creative and being innovative. I have learned that I fit nicely outside of the box, and people will try to sort of keep you in that box. But when you're able to be creative, when you're able to be resourceful, I had to navigate some financial situations where, you had to be creative, and I've had to do that. And I've carried that throughout my entire life, not necessarily doing things that everybody else is doing. And so just making sure you remain as innovative and resourceful as possible. Compassion. I love when Dr. Hoover mentioned, we tend to have so much compassion for others, but oftentimes we lack self-compassion. And that's something that I definitely struggle with as a student. And then it continued as a faculty, because you have some tough days. What Dr. Hoover mentioned, because sometimes you're not able, you have to do it self-check, like check in with yourself and see where you are, where your tank is, and then allowing yourself time to rest, allowing yourself to take a break. If nobody has told you, please hear me. I'm giving you permission to take a break from studying sometimes, because that's the only way that you're going to be able to keep yourself sustained and giving yourself some self-compassion without guilt-free. Okay. All right. So that's compassion. Courage. Courage is one of those things, right? And another thing is in reference to leadership. Sometimes you don't realize you have it until you're faced, you're put in certain circumstances. And, James Baldwin said, not everything that is faced can be changed, but nothing can be changed until it is faced. And so, this work around equity, diversity, and inclusion, it is a tough battle. And oftentimes you have a target, that's directly on you, and you just get a ton of things thrown your way, but you have to be able to have the courage to be able to persevere and to keep moving. I have been placed in many situations where I've had to stand up to leaders, I've had to stand up to bosses, I've had to stand up to colleagues, and sometimes you don't feel like you have what it takes to do it, but you do. And then you go to sleep, that night you get home and it's like, wow, I did that, but it requires a level of courage that sometimes you don't realize you actually have inside. So I would encourage you. This is a trait that definitely helps move you forward. This notion about, education and being educated. So two pieces here. One is this whole notion of making sure you're not the smartest person in the room, right? So making sure that you're continuing to be around people to help lift you up and to help and to challenge you and to help kind of get you thinking differently. It's kind of the value of being around people who can teach you things. This other thing, and I don't know whether or not this is other people's stories, but what happened is the further that I moved up in my education, it sort of separated me from some of my family as well as some of my friends who maybe did not pursue as much education. And, you have to navigate two communities. And that was tough for me, right? Because I'm still the same Shani, even though I have all these letters behind my name. But sometimes people saw me different and I had to learn how to navigate that thing. And that was tough. That was something that nobody really talked to me about. But it's incredibly important, right? And remaining humble. And people are looking at you and people look at you for as motivation, even if they don't necessarily say it, but it's like, well, Shani could do it. Shani could get out of the neighborhood. We can too, and just continue to walk your path, but also recognize that sort of balance and the juggling can be tough at times. Okay, this mentorship versus sponsorship. So, we're family here, so you can share in the chat. So, do you have a mentor? Do you have a mentor? Either put yes or name your mentor, because it's incredibly, incredibly important to have someone who you can go to help you navigate this system. PA school is tough. Working as a PA even tougher. So making sure that you have someone who can help you navigate sometimes some not so friendly waters, someone to be able to just, I call people up when I get different opportunities and say, this seems like a good idea. Should I move forward? And then they're able to really help me make those, help me navigate those decisions. So mentors have been invaluable to me, mentors within my school, but then also mentors outside. And then there's this these are people that have connections already, and they have that social capital that you can go A to B, but this is somebody who is able to open the door at B and give you a seat at the that have really helped me as far as career. So I encourage you to not only have mentors, but to find people in places where you want to be that can help to sponsor you and help get you there. All right. So PA school again was tough. Like it was a tough journey for me. So that it's a good question in reference to the mentor-mentee relationship. I have people that don't even realize they're my mentor. I have people, we have not had a formal conversation, but I absolutely see them as my mentor. And then I have some folks that we have a formal relationship that I check in with them, every other month or so. So it's more formal. So yeah. So this happy and joyful, again, PA school can be tough, but find your joy. What makes you happy? So let's use the chat again. So what's something that outside of PA school, when you do it, it just brings you joy? And what I would encourage you to do is to make sure that you do that. You are not going to get these 2 or 3 years back, right? So you have to keep living. For me, when I was in PA school, my happy place, I don't know if any of you guys know about CDs or CD stores, but there was there was a CD store and there was this leather couch. And I used to go there, and in this particular room, they would play opera, they would play classical, they would play all types of really soothing music. I received so much joy getting outside of that school and sitting in, it was called Tower Records. So I know I'm dating myself, but anyway, it was called Tower Records. It was a CD store, and it brought me joy. Like, that was my happiness. So find some place that brings you joy, and or if it's tennis, if it's volleyball, if it's exercise and reading books, make sure you hold on to that, because that will help you sort of navigate and keep you moving forward. Change agents, right? And so often people see, all those accolades that what you read, people see that, but they don't really see all of the changes that need to take place in order for me to kind of get here. And I think it probably resonates with you all as well, right? So your journey, your story, each iteration, each chapter is a different chapter for you as you are sort of becoming, right? And you all are change agents, and we all had to go through changes to end up where we are right now. Hold on to it, right? And have a level of appreciation and gratitude for the positives as well as the negatives as you are going through all of your iterations of change. Effective communication. And sometimes I can just walk into a room and I, it just, people sometimes fear me as a Black woman, or people hear my tone different because I'm a Black woman, or which is really weird, but read my emails different because I sort of operate as this Black woman. And so just recognizing that those are issues that are out there. I have done my due diligence to make sure that, I've taken some sort of crucial conversation classes, because people sort of navigate a lot of equity, diversity, inclusion issues, having those really difficult conversations. I've taken some courses to be able to do that. And this is an area that all of us can continue to improve. But what also is true is that some people, no matter how many classes you've taken or what you've done, people may hear you different. And so, my mother has an expression like, that's their movie. Is incredibly important. Collaboration and networking goes without saying. You all have this, you have the community here with this PA lead space, but being able to be a part of other spaces and network and collaborate with others, incredibly, incredibly important. In my PA training, I was a PA and also an MPH student. So it was 12 of us in our class. So we called ourselves the Dirty Dozen. And so we all sort of hung out together and collaborated together outside of the larger crew. So have your crew, have the folks who you're able to work with, and then as a PA and then as a PA educator, the same thing has really helped, because you can call on folks, you can learn. I've been able to publish and produce scholarship, and that has happened through networking and through collaboration. Generative and strategic thinking. And so this generative thinking is really being able to have that 30-foot or 50-foot, I don't know what the number is that people will say, but really being able to see that generative thinking, right? So again, out of the box, like it's important it's important not to stay in the weeds, right? And oftentimes, especially in PA school, there's so much information coming at us. We are really barely trying to stay above water sometimes, and you're really just thinking at that level of like, what's the next test? What do I need to study? But being able to continue to have that 50-foot view while we're here, the impact that you're going to have, I know for me, I really wanted to focus on health equity, focus on health disparities, making sure I'm serving the community. So sometimes you have to kind of step outside of that sort of, in the weeds, and really go to that 50-foot view in order to keep you moving. And that really resonated with me. We're family, so I'm just sharing my experience with you. My didactic year, I made it through. I would say I survived my didactic year, but then during my clinical years when I really thrived, right? Because I was able to interact with patients. I knew like it resonated with me, like this is why I am here. Sometimes sitting in clinical medicine class, I would sit there like, why am I here? But once I got into those clinical rotations and really able to interact with patients, it all made sense, you know? And sometimes you have to do that. You have to step outside of your space and get to that place that really pushes you forward. So teamwork, and you know, it goes without saying that you can't do any, you know, very few things alone. As PAs, just naturally who we are, we tend to work in teams. That's the nature of our profession. And so being able to have a strong team, being able to have folks that you can depend on, because you can't do everything yourself, right? And being able to have a team of folks that look differently, that think differently, that they've had different experiences than you, it really, it just goes without saying that it will definitely help to propel you forward. This notion of inclusivity, I think that, again, this is something that I'm sure you have heard and have experienced, and maybe have experienced places that didn't feel so inclusive, right? So one of the things about inclusivity is that it has to be intentional. You know, led a lot of efforts around getting that ARC standard in which PA programs are being sort of held, so need to be held accountable for the diversity and inclusion that's happening within PA programs. And you can tell, and I'm sure many of you, and we could probably just share experiences where you've been a part of places where you feel like it was very intentional to make sure that you felt like you belong. And then there were potentially some other places where it felt like it was an oversight, like, well, you fit in, but you get in where you fit in, right? And so I know that for me, it was incredibly important for me once I graduated from PA school to make sure I would never make someone feel like, you know, that they didn't belong, or that, you know, that it was just sort of happenstance that they showed up. And around you want to create a space where people feel like you created a space for them, right? So that's the notion of belonging beyond inclusivity. And I like the expression of, you know, like if you're having a party or you're having people over, you just don't have them over, you know, if your house looking the way it does, right? So you put some effort into getting things clean, into maybe having some foods that they would like, making sure the music is such that everybody is going to have a good time. And I feel like our PA programs should do the same. And then as you practice as a PA, you want to do the same for your patients, right? So you want to create that environment that they feel like who I am, just as I am, walking through the door, that I feel like I belong, that this place is created for. So that's something, I mean, it's hard to kind of put into words, but that's something that I really want you to think about as you're sort of going through PA school, but then also as you're practicing as a PA. I went through these pretty fast, but I am going to leave some time for questions later because I like having a conversation versus just presenting. But this is the last sort of trait that really helped me to keep swimming. And it's this notion of strength. And so there's a lot of, you know, things in society and media, and even things that maybe grandma has said, that can make you feel like sometimes you're less than, or that that you really don't have what it takes. And so I just want you to hear, just from me as Shani, that each one of you have exactly what it takes to not only get through PA school, but to, be as successful as you can, that you can make it through. And then as well as that you have what it takes to successfully navigate the career as a PA, despite what society tells you, or despite what maybe family or friends have told you, you have the strength. And the thing that has really kept me going, and it can be tough. I don't want to lie to you to say that everything is easy. I've definitely had some really hard days, but I come from a family, like my grandmother, she's like barely 5 foot, but like a force to be reckoned with, right? Like she walks in a room, she demands respect, and she passed on a while ago, but I know that I have her DNA I have her spirit within me. Many of my family members, you know, just have, and ancestors have gone through so much in order for me to be here. And so I think about that when I have these really hard days and bad times, that you have that within you and that you have that to be able to keep moving on and hold on to that strength. Sometimes I find myself in some tough conversations and I think like, what my grandma Daisy say? That's the one who's barely 5 foot. And, you know, she commanded, you know, respect. And I have that same strength within me. So when you think about if you had to put who's that vision for you, let's put it in the chat, like name them. Who are those people that you can lean on for strength? Even if it may not even be somebody who you know, like maybe it's somebody who you see on TV, like that's who, you know, I want to be like, that's the strength. Yeah, a lot of moms are magical. And for me, it was my dad. My dad recently passed as well. I saw that someone in the chat mentioned that my dad recently passed on, but he had an amazing strength and character about him as well. And keep these people, you know, lifted up as you are sort of navigating this time. It will help you as it relates to burnout. It will help you when different things come up. Keep these people in mind. I have pictures. So I have a picture of my dad, picture of my grandma, right next to me at my workstation, because you know, I build and I hold on to their strength to keep me moving. So this is sort of my last slide here. Your time is limited, so don't waste it living someone else's life. This is something that completely and totally resonated with me, resonates even today, right? Because you only have a limited amount of time here on this earth. Make sure that you're doing what it is you want to do. So often, you know, we find ourselves sometimes living somebody else's passion or living someone else's life. This image right here, so I am a beach bum. I love being in sunshine and sitting on somebody's beach. And I had an opportunity for 4 years to live in St. Croix. I worked as a director of community outreach. And so what that was is that I actually got paid to island hop. That was my life. So I hopped from island to island, went to Puerto Rico, St. Thomas, British Virgin Islands, and trying to recruit people to become PAs, right? So that was absolutely fantastic. And so this picture right here, this was when I woke up in the morning, that was the view from my bedroom. So when you talk about living somebody's life, like this was my life, I envisioned it, and this was, you know, and I was able to live it for 4 years. It was amazing. But then, of course, again, you know, just like life, it was Hurricane Maria, destroyed the house, destroyed the job. But now I'm someplace else, right? And I'm still, you know, this is the next chapter of my life. I'm still living the life that I want. But yeah, so, you know, I'll just sort of end it there and open it up to any questions that any of you may have in reference to my journey or anything that I can give you as you sort of navigate your own. So thank you again for the time.
Shani, there are a couple of questions. Somebody's asking, how did you deal with being the only student of color in your cohort?
It was tough. I had to do a lot of self-motivation, right? Because there wasn't a lot of like there were like teachers. You know, like my last year there was when there was two actually Black professors that started with the program. So I had a ton of self-doubt, and unfortunately I had some colleagues that sort of knew that and sort of continued to make me feel like I didn't belong. But again, I had my Dirty Dozen, which was my PA cohort, and I mean my public health folks, and I leaned on them, and we just sort of got through it together. Another thing that got me through was that I wanted to make sure that nobody else really had the same experience, so I knew I needed to make it out. Of folks of color, so that it's not just ones and twos, but unfortunately it's still happening, but we're trying to hold these programs more accountable for doing more around recruitment. Any other questions?
I have another question, Shani. How would you recommend students advocate for themselves in situations where they're not felt included, or they face a lot of like hostility in their programs? How would you recommend they proceed in those situations?
Yeah, that's a great question. So it's kind of a multi-pronged response. The first one is, so advocating for yourself can be challenging, right? So I think that for many, it's a trait that you can see that some folks are just, I can see it. Some of my friends, before, I'm going to write a letter, or tell me who the manager is. Some people, it's just a natural sort of space. For others, it has to be developed. For others, you may just need to kind of lean on some colleagues who it may just be more natural for them. But there are, you want to make sure that you find support. So within every program, if there's an advisor, if there is someone who you trust, even within or outside of your program, that you can have a conversation with. The power differential is real, right? So as a student, right? So, I think it's tough, like when we talk about navigating clinical rotations, and if you have a preceptor that's just, but they're the ones who's responsible for your grade, how to navigate that. I think being able to have somebody within your program, an advisor, someone who you trust, to be able to help. Also, hostile spaces, that's not something that you should, you are paying a ton of money to go into a program, not to be harmed. And so there are some mechanisms around that. So, there's exactly, if you do feel like it's a hostile environment, programs are not allowed to do that, right? So like the accreditation board, they have a space where you can actually write letters to the ARC if there's something specific happening within your program that's against what the standards are saying that your program is supposed to do. And one is your program is supposed to create a safe environment, an inclusive environment for all. So there are mechanisms in which you can have your voice heard through the accreditation. I would say if finding someone within your program or outside of your program that will actually be able to listen to you. There are, at University of Maryland, we have like an ombudsman process to be able to help sort of navigate some things that take place. Another thing that I would say to you is also don't let it fester. Right. And so don't just kind of put it off like, okay, well, all right, I'll let this slide, because invariably it will pile and pile and pile and pile. So try to address it as soon as something happens, and then document everything.
Thank you very much. That was great advice.
Yep.
We have a couple more people. Ashika?
Yeah, hi. I just had a quick question. I was going to ask about, especially because you said you were so outnumbered in your while you were in PA school, which sounds so difficult.
Yeah.
But I was going to ask if you ever felt like burnout while trying to advocate for yourself or your background, because sometimes, at least in my experience, I feel sometimes if I'm the only person in a room that's like from where I am from, or like that has my background, sometimes I can feel burnout from having to explain my culture or where I'm coming from. So I was wondering if you've experienced that, and then if so, if you had any like tips on how you've dealt with it, how you've come past that.
Yeah, that's a great question. So again, just full transparency, I'm 45 now, so I blame a lot on my age that I just don't anymore. Like I'm at a point right now and it's like, you need to do the work. It's a great question. Google exists, and you can find the answer for yourself. So I try not to, but probably younger, I tried to educate everyone and trying to bring everybody on board, but that gets old very, very quickly, right? And I think when you're talking about self-compassion and taking care of yourself, you're giving so much, and you're not like filling yourself. And so it took me a while, but then once I figured it out, I don't have time for it. You know, I put more energy into feeding myself versus educating others on things that's readily accessible. You know, I am very good about having resources, maybe, you know, because the same way that I'm able to find resources, other people are too. But I may shoot you an email with, you know, 10 or 12 places that you can just go find the answer yourself. But I'm not taking on that responsibility to do that. I have also, you know, and this was as an educator, like people, and I don't know that you all face this, but like we would have a meeting and then my colleague wouldn't say anything during the meeting, but after the meeting, they would say like, oh, that was a really good point. And, you know, I'm like, no, well, you need to say that next time. And I will tell them, all right, I'm not going to be the only one talking about diversity in the meeting. You need to say it, you know, because people are so quick to say it, you know, one-on-one. But when it matters, you need to step up and challenge them to step up. But take care of yourself. Take care of yourself. I take breaks because it can be, especially like just the work, like society, right? So when you're doing this work and then you turn on TV and you see like horrible things happening to people who look like you, it's a lot. It's a lot. And sometimes, you know, I've just had to take a break from it and do so without guilt. I keep saying that because I'm somebody who suffers with guilt, but do so without guilt. Like, I just need to take this break and not deal with, you know, a lot of these issues and just fill my tank.
Yeah,
And then,
sometimes it feels like a
do it.
lot. Yeah.
It is a lot. It is a lot. And don't allow for people to make you feel like it's not. It is. It's a lot. And it's not just it's something that you feel passionate about, but it's not just it's not only your battle to fight. Other people need to join in. Other people need to get some scars. You don't have to be the only one with the battle wounds, you know? There was a question, please stop me if when I need to stop talking, but there was a question about self-doubt. So again, I'm 45, so I use that age thing as a, you know, I'm just too tired to deal with it anymore. But sometimes I do, in reference to just, you know, but I've been a part of so many situations that I walk around. I mean, like I look around and, you know, it's like, there's a reason why I'm here. Like I've continued, I mean, I tell myself, like, it's not by accident that I find myself in these spaces. So stop doubting it. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like, there are people who did not have this opportunity to be at this table, but I'm at this table. So let me use my voice. So I think that helps with the self-doubt piece. And then also having those experiences where I have so many experiences of being in places like, again, as the only person of color. And when I operate as a PA, I was in communities where it wasn't a whole bunch of providers of color. And so then like you have these little kids coming in the room and they're looking at you like, oh my goodness, you know, like those are the things that keep me going, you know, like there's a reason why I'm doing the work that I'm doing, and just holding on to things of that nature. So.
Shani, there was another question as well. Kayla asked, do you struggle? I mean, how do you manage or attempt to overcome self-doubt as a new PA?
Yeah. So again, it's having to just continue to, every time you overcome something, right? Keep that in mind, journal about it. Because there's constantly going to be things that come up that you're going to have to make it through. And it's like, every time you do it, it just gives you a little bit more strength, right? And there's a reason why I'm able to overcome these things. There's a reason why I am in these places. And I think that helps with the self-doubt piece. Yeah. And then also, I mean, again, you know, the older I get, it's like you realize that most of the self-doubt comes because a lot, you know, you're comparing yourself to others, but other people have their own stuff, you know, and so I think it's just recognizing that, like, I'm just going to walk my own journey. I'm going to make mistakes, but I'm still doing great things, and let them live their life and I'm going to live mine. So when you stop comparing yourself to others and you do the best that you can and give yourself a chance to take a break, I mean, you know, I think that's what it comes down to. And constantly talking to yourself. I mean, I have, because that negative self-talk, like that voice can be loud. So you have to kind of give that positive voice some strength as well, right? To overcome that negative one. And so I try to feed and nurture her. She probably is a woman, my positive, right? So I'm going to nurture her, and so that her voice can be louder. But when that negative, but it doesn't ever go away. No, it's always there. But I try to just minimize it and give my positive a little bit more voice and strength to be able to overcome.
Thank you so much for that.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Thank you so much, Shani. This was an
Of
awesome
course.
presentation, and I'm sure all of
Thank
us
you.
are going to be walking away with a wealth of knowledge from your session. Thank you once again, and thank you, everyone. Now I'm going to hand this over to Liz.
Thank you so much, Deepti. Thank you so much, Ms. Fleming. That was so